got us at a slightly different angle, so hopefully you can see me working this time. So I've been adding small coils to the top of these pieces, these two separate parts of my top. And I've been being very careful about making sure I compress them on the outside, but I've actually skipped some of the compression on the inside because I was just going to do it kind of in a batch right here. So let me get one more partial coil over here on this side, and then I'm going to get that paintbrush again, and I'm going to make sure that I can get in there and compress. And I'm trying to push kind of down at an angle, so I'm not just pushing across the existing seams, but I'm sort of attaching each one to its other level, the level below. So I'm compressing there, and then on the outside it's kind of rough, right? It's not the most elegant shape. They're a little lumpy. So I'm going to take some time now before I put them together to work with ribs, paddles, my hands to adjust this shape. So first thing I'm doing is with my hands supporting inside. Oh, how do I get this so you can see? With my hands supporting inside, I'm compressing these walls down. And as long as I can reach my finger in there, I can give some support right about there. So my fingertip is getting in there. Now, eventually I'm going to get into this section where I can't reach as well. So I can switch to a smaller rib. I can also use the edge of my paintbrush again, and you can see how it's acting. I don't know that I'd want to use it the whole time in place of a rib, but it's acting in a similar capacity. My hand on the inside is giving support, and this is getting my shape closer to an even and smooth shape. I didn't get as much attention over here yet. So I've used a variety of tools, whatever I've got, right, to adjust that shape. Now that shape, or the shapes of these pieces, is looking a little bit more even, but I actually want to bend them so they come together. So I'm gonna get in there and use my finger on the inside and outside, so my thumb on the inside, my finger on the outside, to gently start to adjust this shape. The clay is flexible, right? It'll move with you. And so as long as you're supporting it, as long as you're working with it soft, as long as you're compressing, so I'm using a hand on the inside and a hand on the outside to make these adjustments, as long as you're being gentle with it, you can get it to behave the way you want to. Now, one of the things you notice as I bend these guys is that my outsides are shorter. So as you wrap these pieces around, if you want them to come back together, you're going to be adding partial coils on the outside and not the inside. And actually, I'm going to add a little corner on that point before I add the coil above it. So now here comes the coil on top. Now you see, I know I've had a bunch of questions about cracking, and my clay, so I'm using this clay because I don't have the porcelain from school. Like, I didn't get a kit, so I'm just using recycled clay I have at home. It's a little older than the clay that you all have, so yours should start out wetter than this. But our hands may dry things at different rates, or our rooms, right? If you've got a fan on, or if it's more or less humid in your space, your stuff may dry faster or slower while you're working on it. You are welcome to add some water. Be a little bit gentle, or gentle isn't the right word. Be a little bit conservative on how much water you add, because if you, I have seen people get them really wet, particularly if you're dribbling water inside and you have it pooling in the bottom on the inside of this. It can cause you some weakness. But as long as you're you're adding the water slowly, right? Not too much. If you use a chamois would be my primary recommendation. A sponge is okay, but a sponge will tend to take away some of your surface. Wipe a sponge on the surface and you end up with washing some of the clay away. Use a chamois and compress, and you end up pressing the clay together. So that's why I recommend one and not the other. So you can see I'm doing a lot of compression on the outside. I'm going to have to come back and do the inside some more. But you can see I'm building up the height a little bit, and I'm building up the height more on the outside than the inside, because my eventual goal here is that these two are going to join together. and joining together a bit like, the opposite of what we did at the start of this guy, where we split those, we added a clay here to split these two parts. Now we're going to add, get to the point where the clay touches itself. I mean, the one end touches the other. Now, before I get too far, I want to get in and compress that inside. Again, I'm using the end of my brush, and I'm supporting it with my hand on the outside. Trying to keep my hand so it's not in the way. It's hard to look at the clay and the camera at the same time and get it close enough where you can see. So now I am going to start to build that bridge, that piece that comes across. So I'm going to take maybe a little bit flatter coil, and this one is going to start to be the bridge. Now I can keep coiling around the outside, like that one's uneven. I can keep coiling around the outside this way until they meet up on the top and the bottom. They've already met up at the bottom until they meet up at the top. I suppose you could come through and add your next coil sort of across this way, but I think you get a better shape, a rounder shape, if you build it up from each side, at least until you get to the middle. And then you're going to have to do some cleanup of the shape once they are totally together, because it's going to, there we go. It's going to tend to be a little bit, a little bit bumpy, a little bit wonky. But that's the nice thing about clay, is you've got working time with it. Once it's together, it's not totally done. You can see now I'm kind of getting in underneath to try to make that a nice curve. I'm not quite done on this side, so I'm going to come back to it. You can see how rough my coils are on the inside, and now you can, I don't know if I can do that backwards, left-handed. I would normally flip it, and then you can't see what I'm doing. So trying to give you a sense of what I'm doing over here to compress those parts together. And just looking for some more wet clay. I've got some pieces of my clay that I've been working with that have dried up, and so I'd rather not use those. All right, wrapping this one around, making sure it compresses here. I need time lapse, but I'm not sure I'm up for editing videos. So sorry about this. You can always skip ahead if the video is going too slow. And eventually we're going to get to the point where both these sides are totally connected. And, depending what you want to do, you could have a piece start to come out the top, or you could just connect them in a ring. This sort of thing would also work for if you're making sculptures of human forms, right? This could be how arms and legs come together if you're building your legs up from the ground or something like that. So I'm going to get this, I think, most of the way done on the top. But then I also want to remind you, using something like a paddle can be really helpful, or spoon. My spoon that I like to use has a flat side and a round side. And so I can use my round side gently to get inside a shape like this and compress it kind of from underneath. I'm probably also going to use fingers, ribs, things like that to continue to compress here. And I would say that this is pretty rough right now. I mean, besides the fact that I haven't finished on the top. One of the things that I tend not to, you don't always see on a video demo is the whole time, right? Things get sped up, things get zoomed past. And so I am going to spend some more time adjusting the shape, making things rounder, probably going to get in here and do some stretching of that. But all that's going to be a little easier once I finish the top, get that completely closed up. One other thing just happened just now that I wanted to show you is, see how that started to pull apart? That's because I was being sloppy. I was moving too fast. If something like that happens, you can rip it apart and work from there. I can also get in here with my scoring tool, which is now across the room, and I can add a little score and slip and help that put it together if I'm not able to reach in to there. And I will do one of those, because once you've got a crack happening like that, it's going to keep happening. So I'm going to go do that and then maybe show one more video when I've got this together.